For the last 10 years of my life, I've tried to do just one thing.
Tunde Onakoya grew up in the slums of Ikorodu, Lagos. He taught himself chess, founded Chess in Slums Africa,
Basically using chess as a tool to empower children that come from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's something I've poured my life into.
and broke the world record for the longest chess marathon in Times Square to raise money for children's education across the continent.
Because for the longest time, I used to think profit was the opposite of purpose. I used to think they were two separate things, but that is wrong.
The world was watching, but behind the hype, he was quietly trying to build a business and failing.
So one of the first things I tried to do was start a new company, like to design chessboards. I even took a loan from a bank, and I'm just so excited to put this out there. And we put it out there, and we only sold one.
What?
And that's when it dawned on me that it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. But I even think it was as impactful as this second story I'm about to share. So it was last year, I think June. I just got back from New York. First dealing with the failure of the chessboards not selling. Then I got invited by the president of Nigeria.
My guy, thank you. I appreciate you for making it.
No, it's an honor to be here.
Thanks, man.
for having
So,
me.
what is a failure story you're going to share with us today?
Many failures. Okay, maybe more recent ones, because those ones are still fresh in my head. But I think a lot of like the past failures have sort of like morphed into some sort of like experiential learning, right? That has given me some sort of like meaning, right? But I'm sharing this recent failure because it hasn't morphed into anything meaningful yet. It's just still hurt as failure, I guess. Just for context, for the last 10 years of my life, I've tried to do just one thing, right? And I've given a lot of like my energy and time to trying to make this work, which is the Chess in Slums project. Basically using chess as a tool to empower children that come from disadvantaged backgrounds, right? And it's something I've poured my life into. But sometime last year, I decided to venture into a road of entrepreneurship, and it was a new thing for me, because I think with time I got to realize that if you really want to change the world at the scale at which it demands, someone has to pay for it.
Absolutely.
Right? And paying for, like the impact you want to see or you want to create in the world, it's not an easy thing, right? And so when that started to dawn on me, because for the longest time I used to think, profit was the opposite of purpose. I used to think they were two separate things. Like if you're a purposeful person, you shouldn't be optimizing for profit.
That's what I used to think as well.
Yeah, but that is wrong, honestly. And I think it is even much more important for, people like us that have such a grand purpose, in life, that have such a heart for others, to be exceedingly successful, to be the ones that will be in control of the resource, right, to change things, meaningfully for others. I think this has become even more important now. So all of this was like my mindset, and I was like, okay, let me take the plunge, let me start. And so one of the first things I tried to do was start a new company, like to design chessboards, right? And it was like, okay, chess is my life. This is what I love. This is what I've done, the entirety of my life. This is what has given me, a fighting chance. Now let me sort of like build this into a product that people can buy, that people can truly value. Something that is not just functional as a chessboard, but something that also has like a story behind it, right? So I designed it. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. Collaborated with some architects in London. And we put it together, beautifully designed, put in a lot of effort into really making sure that, in fact, there was a part of the board where like there was like a love letter imprinted behind it, so that when people read it, they understand the very essence of this product, right? I want to share the love and the gift of chess with everyone, that they can share with their friends and families. But I also wanted them to understand that this is what it means, because if we're able to sell these chessboards, right, then we're able to provide for the children, that do not have access to education. And we're able to do that really well. So all of that was set, we're very excited, right? People love Tunde, so they will support. And, he was good. I remember, I think I even took a loan from a bank,
Oh wow.
for the entire production,
Wow.
and I was like, okay, this would work out well. We have all of this traction, and I'm just so excited to put this out there. And I remember we're in New York at the time, so I had taken about like 5 of the children from our programs to America.
I think I watched one of these
yeah.
video.
Yeah, and it was incredible because
Yeah.
they did so well. One of them won a gold medal at the
Yeah.
United Nations, and it was such a beautiful story. And we put it out there, and we only sold one.
What?
We only sold one chessboard, and
After all the design,
Yeah,
after
after
all
all of that.
just everything.
Yes, and that was painful because I'd expected that things would turn out differently, and of course it didn't work out the way I'd envisaged in my head. I ended up selling just one, and that put a lot of pressure on me, across board. A lot of the partners, even like the funding I tried to put together, and that's when it dawned on me that it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. I had sort of like experienced a first real failure, that I had to sit with, right? And it sort of like helped me, or it pushed me to recalibrate everything that I thought I had known, or everything I thought was true about the things that I could do.
As you're
Right.
recalibrating, what are the specific emotions you're feeling?
So I guess, like, again, there's a distinction between charity and business, right? And the messaging for both have to be different, right? And it is also the way people like perceive value. With charity, I think it's when you do great work, people feel something, right? And when people feel strongly, right, they in some way want to live vicariously through you,
Yeah.
right? And especially when it compels them, right? When they feel something deeply. And over the years, we've told a lot of incredible stories, right? But the mistake I made was in putting out the product, right? It was important to sort of like frame it also, not beyond just people feeling something, right? Like beyond that is like when people see that they also want to, that is something that proposes or that appeals also to their self-interest. Something that they see, there's an opportunity here,
Yeah.
right, for me to also like get some value out of this personally, like beyond even like being endeared or feeling compelled by it. So that was like the next phase that we sort of like did not think through, in terms of like convincing people enough to, of course, it was important for them to understand that its product is valuable and important for this reason. But beyond that, too, that they can also collect it for their own intellectual benefit. It can beautify their space, something they can share, something they can be proud of. So we sort of didn't extend it to that point, and we sold just one. And what was even more interesting was we sold it during the world record event.
Yeah. Oh
Like-
wow. Oh my.
So it was like in
God.
New York where like, we're trying to
What?
break the world record
Yeah.
again last year. And it was like with the buzz and everything I had
So the
expected.
timing is perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect. Like there was a lot of traction,
Yeah.
but of course it didn't work out. And again, how I felt, it was a myriad of emotions. Like, okay, first of all, don't believe the hype. Never believe the hype, because yes, I mean,
What do you mean
social
by
media
that?
hype and
Oh yeah. Okay.
likes, it doesn't necessarily translate. And again, there has to be a different way, right, to sort of like explain something. There has to be a different way to present something, right? And I had to sit with that, felt a bit of, shame about it. But it also made me realize something, right? And I have shared this before, about the journey of the river and the ocean, right? And it was that realization that helped me make sense of this kind of failure, right? So it was, okay, I was going through a phase of my life where, again, I had done one thing for 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, I was trying to build up my own personal brand identity and show the world what else I was capable of, right? But even I myself, I wasn't certain that I was ready for it. And I think, like, people could sense that in some way. I didn't believe that I was someone that was truly capable of also doing that. Of course, I put in a lot of effort, but I hadn't even reached that point mentally that I could make this transition, that I could even separate my identities, because my identity had always been deeply tied to the charity work that I do, right? And to sort of like want to flip that immediately, you know, people can be confused by that, right? But I hadn't had time to sit with it myself. And the story of the river and the ocean put it into perspective for me. And it was a poem by Khalil Gibran.
Oh, that's
right.
one of my
That
favorites.
it is said that the river, travels across this narrow path and arrives at the mouth of the ocean. Now, the river sort of like looks back on this journey and it begins to tremble because it sees the vastness of the ocean and it's like, wow, like it feels that fear that it will disappear into the ocean and become completely lost and irrelevant. Right. And that sort of like put things into perspective for me, because this is me that I'm leaving my comfort zone, what had been safe for so many years, to venture into this brutal world of, of entrepreneurship, but then the poet went on to say that the river should not be afraid of disappearing into the ocean, but to be excited to become of the ocean, right? And in becoming the ocean, right, like the river becomes that vastness in itself.
It's
and
a metamorphosis.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like, so I needed to come to terms with that I'm not selling this board, so I'm not trying to do all these things and show the world what else I'm capable of for my own selfish interest, right? I want to do it so that I can become the ocean. I can become the one who now has the capacity to do these things at more scale, right? And I think effectively sort of like understanding that, right, helped me recalibrate better and helped me deal with the shame that I felt, about not succeeding at this new thing that I thought was going to work out. And it eventually worked out. It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
It took almost a year to get over it and do it again.
So
I did it again.
You were talking about it. Like, I want you to like zero in a bit more in terms of like what specific strategies you use to kind of mindset shift strategies or resources you use to kind of like deal with this issue, like there and then as it's happening, in terms of how you're processing it, what you're going to do next. You've mentioned the emotions, but like what strategies, resources, or mindset shifts you use?
So a couple of things. One of the things I try to first understand, right, is to see how other people that I admire deal with failure, right? And it helps me, especially like my mentors, for example, and in ways in which I pick mentors, or when you think about like mentorship, it's like you're picking someone whose hindsight becomes your own foresight, right? Someone that has lived through certain experiences, right? But even like much broadly, if you take a lot of like super successful people, if you take their lives, into consideration, you'd see that there's only one thing they have in common, right? Only one thing. Every single successful person that you have seen, whether in business, in the sport, entertainment, whatever capacity, whatever industry, they have all failed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one thing they have in common. So in essence, what does that tell you? That the only way to be successful is to chase failure. And in chasing failure, you sort of like come to success. It's very funny and ironical, right? So, and chasing failure is a very interesting concept, right? And so for me, it was, okay, this has happened.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, it would feel like foolishness to want to do it again, right? Because again, you failed at something and you're still chasing the same exact thing. Why not just stick to what you know that works, that is true, that is comfortable, that has served you for so many years, But that is never how growth happens, right? And I feel like everything had prepared me for that moment, even as a chess player. One of the things you learn very early on in chess is that, like, you will lose. It doesn't matter how good you are, right? And I remember I was teaching one of the kids recently. It was a beginner, and we had set up the board. I told him, this is the pawn, this is the queen, this is the knight. That the queen, so when we got to the queen, I explained to him that the queen is the most powerful piece on the chessboard, right? And she has unbridled strength. She cannot be contained. And I could see the boy, something just lit up in his eyes. He was so excited. Immediately knew that the queen was going to be his favorite piece. and I sensed that. But interestingly, during the game, so after teaching him the rules of the game, we started playing. Then I saw that I was doing something which was making him lose. It would not move his queen. Right? It would hold back from moving his queen. So it would lose, because it would be moving only pawns and all the other officers. Then I asked him, like, why are you not moving your queen? And he was like, Uncle, but you told me that it's the most powerful piece, so I don't want to lose it. But I'm like, if you don't play with it, then you're surely going to lose. And he was like, he grumbled, and he started using the queen. Of course, he still lost because he was playing it, but he felt even better. And, but I remember when I was going on that day, I just kept pondering on what had happened. Now, and this is something that we all have to, understand in our own lives, right? The queen is the most powerful piece on the chessboard. But what she has is this innate potential, but if you don't use it, right, there's no consequence on the board. It becomes practically inconsequential, and it applies to our lives. There's this thing that is sitting dormantly that can only be activated through failure, through the risk of failure, right? Because the risk of losing the queen, right, is a serious one. Because if you lose your queen, which is your most powerful officer, right,
basically
you lose the
screwed.
game.
Yeah.
So it feels safer to not involve it in the game and just let it just sit pretty and quietly.
Don't take any
But that
risk.
wasn't what the queen, was built for. She was built to traverse the chessboard with a lot of power and strength, vertically, horizontally, diagonally. So I think, for me, I wanted to understand it through that lens of like chess, going back to the chessboard, because that is what has sort of like explained the philosophy of my life, for the longest time, is how do I understand failure through this lens, right? And it really helped me, right, that being able to try again is probably the most important skill that you would ever have as someone who is a dreamer, someone that you're pretty sure that you want to do something remarkable in the world. So being able to bounce back from failure has to be the most important skill, right, that you have. Because remember, you're on a journey of chasing failure, right? So the time between your failure and doing the next foolish thing, daring again, you have to shorten it as much as possible. Because a lot of people wallow so deeply in their failures that it completely breaks them. And what you don't want to give is the time for that emotion, right, to manifest. Because when it does, right, it creates fear, right? And it becomes the one thing that would keep you, in the same place for the longest time. And it's that fear. Because especially you talk to startup founders and a lot of people that have failed, and you see it's like in the way they talk about like life and maybe like new endeavors. Something has broken. There's no that excitement of like being young and naive is no longer there. They have felt the pain of failing at something, and that has constrained them. So you would always see that there's a difference between someone that is very naive and still full of energy. You just know that they've not tasted this thing, right? So I guess for me, it was understanding that I must try to reduce the time, right, between that failure and my very next endeavor. I must shorten it to the barest minimum, right? Because if I spend too much time dwelling on it and let it manifest for too long, then it would take up a space in my heart and prevent me from doing other things. So it's like, I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So if you're failing very rapidly like that, and you're on to the next thing, they say a moving
closer
man,
to success.
a moving man will surely is luck one day, but you really just have to be on that trajectory,
And
right? Which was what I did again, and
that's what's up.
eventually worked out.
Who were the people you would say helped you navigate this failure, helped you grow or learn from it? Was it any key kind of people around you that kind of helped you in this process?
Yes, absolutely. My friends, my team, my mentors, and
And
my
how
family.
did they help you as well?
I guess for my friends, and it was important for them to remind me, who I was. One thing I've always believed, right? Now, public perception is one thing, especially if you're doing the kind of work that puts you in public eye, right? But a good measure of success is that you've earned the love and the admiration of people who know you best, right? Because it's easy to sort of
That's
like
really good.
judge yourself. And okay, let me give this example, right? And we're still talking about failures. I'm going to just give this experience, something that happened. The chessboard was one thing, but I don't think it was as impactful as this second story I'm about to share. So it was last year, I think June. I just gotten back from New York with the kids, first reeling from the failure of the chessboards not selling, then I got invited by the president,
wow.
of Nigeria. And for me, it was like, okay, I understood that, like, with everything that was going on in the country right now, everything was very politically charged, right? And I was going to get caught up in the middle of it. There was no way to spin it, right? I'm not. I try to refrain from politics. My politics goes as far as like doing what I can, in my own capacity, and casting my vote, right? But I know that my fight is different, and it wouldn't make sense to start fighting everything else. I can focus on the things that I can change, which is what has helped me so far, and just giving all my energy to that, right? So now, of course, people are very disgruntled about a lot of things, and which is very valid, right? But I had been invited by the presidency of my own country, right, to be honored, for breaking the world record and making the country proud. Because after breaking the world record, we're like front page New York Times, New York Post, CNN. It was all over the place, right? People from all over the world traveled to Times Square to support us. Like I had been honored in Dubai and all of these countries. I've been flown all over the world. I just came back from Barcelona, where I became the first African to receive the Leda Ramos Award. So, so for the presidency to invite me, it was a civic duty, right, to honor that, right? And I did. And I remember when it sort of like came out on social media the next day, it was crazy. Oh my goodness. Like the entire internet went into a meltdown. And I kept trending for the next 3 days. I remember even like the following day there was some massacre in I think Benue. That happened, like 200 people were killed. And guess who was trending? I was the one trending. And people were sort of like making mockery of me and the situation, like, calling me like chess and graves. That it was really that bad. It was horrible. God. All of this was because I honored an invite from the president of the country. And at first, I didn't take it too seriously, right? Because I didn't think like I had done anything wrong. I don't care about endorsing anyone. I don't care about politics to be involved like that. But it was a civic duty to honor, the president's invite, which I did. And I used the opportunity to make a case for the work that I do. This is what I think. Because one problem I care about solving is ensuring that no child remains on the street. And I explained it there that this is what I think should be done, to ensure we create like an alternative system, for these kids to be rehabilitated and reintegrated back into society, right? And I felt like I had done the honorable thing. But of course, again, whenever things are very politically charged like this,
it's going to be
it becomes, there's a lot of like very hard and harsh opinions, and everyone ran with theirs. There were people that are like, oh yeah, sell out, you didn't. And so that is another example I would cite that was really hard for me, right? Because I I had to deal with something like that before. I'd always been, the internet sweetheart in a way because of the work that I do, but immediately now seeing that change where a lot of people that I've always, told you, oh, Tunde, we love you, love what you do. They just sort of like
flip.
switching immediately to, oh, you're a fool. Honestly, real time, it was quite devastating for me, but it also helped me understand something, right? And so in some sense, I can like brandish this as a situation of like failure in terms of like, especially with the sensitivity of the work that I do, which is always like you have to manage perception, public perception, right? Because we get a lot of support from people. Without support from people, it is hard to actually do the work that we do for the children. A lot of people have donated over time and our cause. So there would always be that conflict, right? Oh, if Tunde is now frolicking with the government, then that is it. And which is so, to me, it's like, that is not what is going on here,
God.
right? And you have to understand that my perspective is different from that of the average person. I'm a leader, I have a responsibility, and also like to my country. And no one can say no to that, irrespective of what my politics is, right? So it was hard, and it was a very hard period for me. But of course, again, a lot of those people that had all this vitriol, all those things to say, they don't know you. Which is why having your friends and family, again, which is why I said the greatest mark of good success is that you have earned the love and admiration of those who know you best, right? So social media and the whims and caprices of people will change.
Yeah.
Today, they might love you. Tomorrow, if you say something, they will insult you. Tomorrow, they might hate you. Whatever. That would change depending on what you say or what you do or what you do not say. But what is a constant is the people around you within your circle that know you best, that know you through all the good, the bad, and the ugly.
How do you keep that circle around? Like, how do you make sure you're always in contact? Because your schedule is insane.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all of this stuff going. There's all of this noise. There's all these things that you have to do. And I'm finding out, and I'm not famous like you or anything like that, but the older I'm getting, the more responsibilities I'm having.
Yes.
There's more expectations, more pressure. And then I have all these friends and family, and to be able to even keep in contact with people all the time. And you're saying those who know you best.
When it comes down to the wire.
The time as well. How do you do that?
Only
man?
people that can hold you down. I know. Maybe
It's
let
hard.
me give an interesting story that explained this, or at least made it, clearer to me. It was when I was in Germany, right? I was in Munich. I'd been invited to speak at this conference. So it was my first time experiencing snow. So I was so excited. I went out. It was like -10 degrees. It was insanely cold. Everybody was running at me. I was just like in the snow like this, trying to make snowman. And because it felt like such a wonderful thing to experience, and I was really excited. It was my first time. The snow was falling. I went on my phone. I was making videos. But guess what? After some time, maybe after like 15 minutes, I started to feel the cold like crazy. So immediately, when my finger, I couldn't feel this finger again. I just had to grab my coat, quickly run inside, the hotel where we're having dinner and to get warmth. And again, my way of like understanding the world is to find meaning in even some of these mundane experiences. And that is how, life is for the dreamers, for those in pursuit of something, right? Or even like fame and success and all of these things, right? The allure of like the snow and, that the beautiful experience of it is like that taste of success, that fame, you're now an important person, you're needed, you're this. The allure of it is wonderful. Right? And it's so easy to get lost in it.
Yeah.
Right. But the truth is you must recognize that this is not what matters. What matters is that when all of this is over, this shiny stuff, that you still have warmth to return to. So warmth is that safety that you can return to and be like, okay, I'm no longer cold. right? So what the mistake most people make is they get too deeply fascinated by this and they invest all their time in being out in this cold, right? That they forget to invest in warmth. And in this case, it's that you have to be very deliberate about choosing your friendships. And the mistake I used to make was I used to wait for friendships to come to me. Like, okay, maybe when something happens, or maybe we just find ourselves, maybe I did this thing, and then we connect. And no, you have to be deliberate about choosing the people that you want to spend your life with, right? And we have a sense of this within like the context of a romantic relationship, right? That when you see someone, you have like you fall in love and you're like, oh, I want to do life with this person. But we must apply this in our friendships as well. That you must have a sense of like who to do life with when you meet them, or you intentionally search for that. The people in your circle, you have to. And you have to also invest time in it. Because if you don't, and when the allure of like you being busy and all of that is over, you would have nothing to go back to. And of course, I had to learn this the hard way. But just to bring it back to your question is, you have to be very intentional about choosing and not just waiting for like things to happen that like births relationship. Like you have to be intentional about choosing it. And of course, you won't always have the time. I'm traveling most of the time now, but I know that like when I can, I give 100% to it. So when I'm back, so a lot of that was able to anchor me when I now had my down moments, when you're no longer easy to love on social media, and everyone is like, oh, you're a sellout, you did this. So then you lose, like it sort of like breaks you in a way that because if you had been seeking validation through that, how the public perceives you as a great guy, as a wonderful person, then it doesn't hold. So what holds is what the people that know you best remind you, and they remind you that this is who you are, not what all these other people think or they're saying.
That's why so many famous people have breakdowns, man.
Yes,
like when things happen.
You really need that, and you need it to be something that you can trust, that you can hold on to as your truth. And as long as you have that, then you have everything. You have good success.
So I guess the final question in the failure part would be, what are you've been dropping gems throughout, but you have to like synthesize all of this. What are the 3 key takeaways that you would provide based on your failure stories, plural, that you would share?
3 key takeaways. I think the first and obviously like the very obvious one is failure really is a part of the process, right? And again, it's the one thing every successful people share in common. So if you know that much, because if you ask successful people how did they become successful, they all have different stories. Some don't even know how to articulate it. But the one thing that is coherent and that is clear is that they have all failed in different degrees. They have all failed massively. Right? So that should, in a lot of ways, right, be comforting that it is going to be a part of it. But the most important thing now becomes how you deal with it, which is the second point, right? And the second point is just try to reduce the time, right, between like failure and recovery, right? Reducing that time, right, really helps you. So you don't give too much to something that it's going to be a recurrent thing. You can't not fail. It is impossible, right? So much ado about nothing. So you have to learn how to bounce back as fast as possible, like as quickly as you can. And this is so important because I've seen a lot of like my guys. I've seen how failure has completely stopped them in their tracks. Like, and I know that it's painful stuff. It's something that can be quite devastating. Because in theory, if I'm saying it now, it's only because I can say this in hindsight. Like even the thing with the chessboard now we sold out all the chessboards.
That's what's up.
Right. So in hindsight, I can say, oh, I felt this way, but now, things are soft now. But the truth is, it is only in hindsight that we can sort of like feel differently and understand, the lessons it tries to teach us, which is why that speed of like recovery, you need to find a method, something that works, something that gets you through it as soon as you can. So you're not spending too much time dwelling on it. Because when you do, and it completely destroys you, and you lose your excitement about trying something new, then you become like the 99% of other people. But there's 1%, right, of people, again, and this is for anyone listening to this, that you're very convinced that, like, you are here to do something truly remarkable in the world. You're here to change the world in a meaningful way. You have to learn to deal with this, because it is one of the most important things you'd have to contend with in your entire life.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think maybe the final thing is that so there's a very interesting relationship, between like fear of failure and how people perceive it. So the thing is that most people are not afraid of failure in itself. They're afraid of people seeing them fail. So it's like the
What are people gonna
shame.
think?
The shame of that is, if your failure was private, yeah, whatever. But don't even fail on Instablog. Once you fail on Instablog, that's another thing entirely. But it's like it's the nature of how it sort of like explodes, right? Is what is the real issue. And to this I say, now it's in two folds. Now, to the young person that is still going through life, is still trying to find your place in the world, there's a wonderful gift that you have right now. Is that the stakes are very low for you. Your failures can happen, within your small confine, right? Which is why you need to fail as much as you can now, before your life comes into the glare of the public, or before you become truly responsible at the scale where failure now, it has
stakes.
the stakes are much higher and is much more impactful across all levels for other people beyond yourself, right? So this is the gift of your life, right? Exploit as much as you can. Be impulsive, be courageous, hold nothing back, give it everything, right? Exercise the highest form of agency in just doing stuff, right? Like, just effing around and finding out. Like, you have the liberty and the freedom to do this right now. Do it and enjoy it, right? Please just do it. Because again, the greatest thing about failure is not that people, or the most insidious thing about it is that people are not afraid to fail. They're afraid of others seeing them fail. And that is what is truly, truly devastating, right? So now, on the second forward is that if if the stakes are already high for you, you're already in a place where, like, your failure will be amplified. Your failure will be impactful beyond yourself, right? And of course, you now become so much more conscious of the things that you do, because if you fail, right, the world will hear. And that isn't something a lot of people can. The shame of that is not something they can live with, right? And if you have that to contend with, then of course, your situation is a bit different. But what I would say is, see, man, you have only one life. Yeah. Right? So when and we suffer more, honestly, in our own minds, right? The world is the whims and caprices of the world, like, it changes, right? You may think that there's a lot of focus on you, because one thing the world loves to see more than a hero rise is seeing him fail. They enjoy it. And it's just human nature. You cannot change that.
Yeah.
The moment you fail, it becomes a spectacle.
Yeah.
People use you as a cautionary tale, do this, da. But listen, I promise you, like, that changes very quickly. It changes very quickly, very rapidly. People have moved on to the next thing. So if you let that become the very thing that defines your entire life, right, then you've done a great disservice to the dream or to the life that God has given you, right, to bring to fruition, right? So I would say, do not care what anyone says, right? Just have a very small circle of people that you trust their opinion, right? And run with that. And when you do that, you find that you're just living for the audience of one, and which is how I've sort of like redefined my life, that just for the audience of one. As long as God is happy with the things that I do, and I'm sure that it doesn't erode my value system, right, then I'm fine. And I've done a lot of things after that, after those two experiences. Of course, things are a lot better now. Things are different now. Now I feel so much more freedom because I feel like, the worst has happened already. Now I can do anything. So what is on the other side of failure is that liberation that you feel that now you don't have to always be conscious of all the breaking stuff. You will break stuff. You can't do without doing it. Yeah. But then there's liberation on the other side.
I feel really privileged. I feel like you're just talking to me, not knowing other people getting out of this. No, real gems. No, thank you very much. And we have some rapid fire questions for the audience to get to know you a little better. I mean, most people do, but just to get to really know you. So here we go. What's one book you'd recommend and why?
Just one book.
You can recommend multiple if you want. I know for people that read, it's just like, oh, Lord.
Yes.
Which one? Can I pick one?
There's a lot of good books that I've come to deeply appreciate recently. But then it depends because I'm a very curious person. So my curiosity sort of spans across like philosophical ideas, and it was just even self-development and just poetry, all of that. But maybe one book I would say really had the most impact on my life was The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. It just talked about a lot of things about life. And maybe another book, The Things We Can Only See When We Slow Down. I can't remember the name of the writer now.
I'll get it.
But that's a wonderful book, right? And it is much more important in these times because it feels like everything is moving fast, emerging technologies, everything around us, and we're almost always reactive to all these things, right? But there are things you can only see when you truly slow down and you come back in tune with the very essence of who you are. And just, you need to keep that soulfulness because if you're always reactive and you're moving with the speed of things, then there's no time to truly reflect on, how you define your place in the world and the things that you must do and how you must do them. You just become just so reactive and responsive. And so the things we can only see when we slow down. I'll try to check the author. I can't remember now.
I'll put it up.
It's a beautiful book.
I feel like I know where this one will come from. What's a quote that you live by? Will it be from Khalil Gibran's book?
No, but this one is my own personal quote that it is possible to do great things from a small place. That is something I wrote down 8 years ago and has become my entire,
it is
life
possible to do great things from a small place.
In fact, all great things must start small. Think of from the greatest abstractions to the highest buildings, the highest skyscrapers. It started with just a small grain of sand.
Yeah.
And it became this magnificent thing.
That's what's up. And who inspires you regularly?
Regularly. Well, my mom, for sure. And recently I came across this man that wrote this book called Just Mercy. I think Steve Bryanson. Okay. So he runs an initiative called Equity Justice, EJI Initiative.
Okay.
Deeply inspiring. This is a man that has given the last 40 years of his life, fighting for young men that are wrongly incarcerated. And his story is just so deeply inspiring. Like, this man has done truly great work. That inspires me because I have seen what it means to devote your entire life to solving a very hard problem that you may never be able to solve in your lifetime, right? But it's the privilege of your life to even die while trying to do it. So yeah, Steve Bryanson for sure. And Mama Tunde Onakoya.
Oh.
That's my hero, yes.
And what's one skill you believe every person should have?
Learning how to learn. I think it becomes the greatest skill in the world eventually, because now technology is advancing, and the truth is, one thing I've always been sure of, with me and like everything with my journey so far is that I'm very adaptive. Like when something new happens, when I'm dedicated to learning something new, right? I let my curiosity lead, right? So again, let me just give the example of AI and a lot of the ways the world is changing is the people that would win are the ones right now that are learning how to master its use, its application. Some people that are still in denial or still rejecting it, right? And there's some people that just don't know where to start from. They're just confused, right? Because I keep asking myself, you see, like today, Anthropic is dropping stuff. You know, Google is dropping stuff, OpenAI. I'm like, what really is Africa's place in the world? What is the place for the average Nigerian, young person? Like, if the world is changing so rapidly, we're literally witnessing the very fabric of society change, then what becomes our place in this new world? Obviously, it won't be at infrastructural level because we don't have that. We've missed out on that. Then what exactly it is, right? And it has to be its application in some sense, right? If we can't build the infrastructure, we can at least, be creative about its application within our own context. So only those who have that capacity, like, to learn, and to sort of like adapt everything they know to this new wave, to this change, and they know how to do it by exercising the highest form of agency without waiting to be told, are the ones that will truly succeed. So I think it might be the most important skill to learn.
If you want, in your current vocation, profession, field that you're in, what would you be doing? Do you reckon that's it?
I'll be. I know that now for sure. From my last trip to Europe, I'll be a musician, a pianist. Because when I was in Barcelona, right? So I used to play piano, in a band and all of that. I used to sing a little too. So, but when I was in Barcelona, of course, I was anonymous, so I could be anything. So I remember going to this place. It was this private members club bar, and there was a piano, and there was a microphone, and they were like, "Oh, we need someone to perform." And I just went there. So what's your name? Yeah, my name is Stefan. So I can be anything. And in that moment, I was a performer, and I sang and I played, and people had a great time, and they were like, "Oh wow, are you a musician?" I said, "Yes, I'm a musician in Africa." So I could sort of like play pretend in that sense, and it felt liberating in some way.
I can imagine.
But maybe in an alternate universe, is something that I would have pursued as a pianist, mostly as a pianist in the world.
Wow.
I think that would have been interesting.
That's really cool. And what's something you've learned about yourself in this past year?
In this past year, this past year has been the toughest of my entire life, and at first I struggled to name certain things, and I think it's one of the challenges of even like modern life. When we're not able to articulate something or properly define it, it can just linger for too long until you name something, right? You cannot resolve it, right? And which is why I'm always an advocate of like reading very broadly, like improve on your vocabulary, learn how to articulate a lot of things that you feel, open your third eye and try to see the world beyond what is obvious to you. Because people don't open their third eye, they just go and they're just, going with the times and everything. But there's a third eye that gives you a new level of consciousness and awareness of the world. I think last year was when that third eye became fully activated. I became a lot less naive about many things. And I learned that I wasn't such a perfect person that I thought I was. My flaws became so much more deeply known to me. I can't go into everything, but maybe one thing that I came to terms with was that I was so much of a people pleaser, right, last year, right? And because I hated like confrontation, I hated all this, I would just say yes to everything. And that made me burn out so much.
God.
It made me make so many mistakes. Like it made me it was just so bad. And I even searched deeper into this, that like even with the work that I do, right, there was always that sense of like wanting to like be the hero of the story, wanting to be the one who does it, who does that. And so because of that, I couldn't detach myself, and like trust other people to do certain things, because I felt like I had to,
To do it all.
be the one standing in the gap. And of course, naming it now helped me to shame it. Like, so I think it helped me sort of like understand that, okay, this is a deep flaw that I have. And it was something I had to put guardrails around, sort of like also like seek advice from people and begin to consciously work towards like changing it, right? Which came with like, okay, there had to be new boundaries.
Yeah.
We had to do certain things even for the organization. And I think now, of course, I'm in a much better place. I think I'm a much different person. Last year, I used to be very trusting of everything, of everyone. But now, not like I've become very like super apprehensive, but I've become so much more cautious, so much more guarded, right? And it has just helped me to be better in evaluating, to be more objective. And it doesn't, being the nice guy is not always a good thing, right? Of course, be nice, be kind, but when you do that to your own detriment, then it can be really, really bad.
Yes.
And people would exploit that.
What's one habit you're trying to build and another you're trying to break?
Break is definitely using my phone too much. Yes.
People have mentioned this.
Yes, yeah. Honestly, in fact, I'll need the blood of Jesus to break it. I need to do, honestly, my life is too tied to my phone. I wake up, it's the first thing, messages, emails. It's too much. Definitely trying to break that.
Yeah, too much dopamine, man.
Yeah, too much. Always
too
want to
much.
be in the know of things. And you think you're retaining all this information, but
It's too much.
yeah, actually nothing sticks. So of course I'm trying to break that habit to use my phone a lot less, and just talk to people more. Right. Habit I'm trying to build. I'm trying to be more intentional about like documenting properly like the things that I do, like my journey. I think I used to do that a long time ago, but now everything is happening so fast and I just completely forget to. So I'm trying to do that by sort of like starting a media company on the side. And this is the first time I'm talking about this.
Okay.
A media and storytelling company to capture a lot of the stories, and to write more in that sense, also write more. I
Nice.
think when you write more, they say like we write to taste life twice. Like something happens to you, but because you don't document it in a way, like you don't write about, you don't journal, you forget. And we're getting older now, so
man.
the more older you become, your memory doesn't serve you so yeah, definitely the habit of documenting things, writing a lot more. And of course the media company and storytelling company is sort of like a way to also institutionalize that. Yeah,
So you haven't started it yet? Or you're in the
I
process?
haven't launched
or
it yet,
Oh,
but
okay.
of course I've been at it for a while now.
So you hearing it here?
Yeah, first. Get ready.
Yeah, my wife has a journal. She's obsessed with journals. So every evening she'll write
She'll write
what's happened during the day, and I'm just hoping. I hope I haven't pissed you off enough that you're like scribbling away. Just right. Sometimes she's like right like this. I'm just like, oh, wow, man, I don't know what I did today, and I'll be in bed next to her, and she'll just be writing. And I'm like, God,
Yeah,
what did I do?
it's important.
It's very, very important. What does success mean to you?
Now is that I'm able to, like my idea of the world that is in my head, then I'm able to like bring it to fruition without like losing myself. Now, I was comfortable with doing that before. I just do everything, right? But I think it's important to be a bit measured. Like, I want to do good in the world. I want to impact the world at the scale in which I know I'm truly capable of, right? I want to ensure that child poverty in Africa becomes non-existent. I want to show the world that it hasn't seen the best of us, right? The world has not seen the best of Nigeria. That is the truth, right? And I'm so deeply committed to this cause every single day. Is what keeps me awake. It is the only metric of success for me. That the moment that becomes a reality, right? And I feel like I have contributed to this in my own way, right? That becomes my legacy. It becomes my real estate. Like, it becomes a thing I want my children and great grandchildren to be proud of. That my father was a part of this, that changed this, right? But I don't want to accomplish this and lose myself, in that pursuit. So I'm learning what balance truly means. I used to think balance doesn't exist. So success really is a balanced life where I'm able to create impact in my own way, but I'm also able to give love to myself, to keep a little love for myself.
And it's very
simple things.
Very hard, because I won't mention these historical figures, but there are some very inspirational historical figures who have done absolutely amazing things for people,
and it came at a cost.
It came at a cost to losing themselves, having very, very flawed personal lives, really hurting their families and people around them. And then, like I said, like you've said, as you get into your field and you're growing in that field and you're making an impact, you start realizing the costs that these guys, like the challenges. You're like, oh wow, this is what this is what was given.
Which is why you must never listen to people who have no skin in the game.
This is when you just, oh wow, this is what was given.
It takes, This is
what
and
was
only
given,
time can teach you that.
It's deep. I actually forgot there was a question before that, so I have to ask you, because that was the best way of ending it, and I couldn't. Which was, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
With anyone dead or alive?
Yeah.
It's interesting enough. Maybe Bobby Fischer. So for those who don't know, it was the world chess champion, well, the first American. So at the peak of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and America. So it was when, America eventually took the chess excellence away from the Soviets. And it was one thing that they used to prove their intellectual dominance. So Robert, Bobby Fischer was a very interesting human. I'd like to really sit with him, and dead. Alive, I would really love to, and have to be careful now, because it looks like everyone that I used to think was now in the Jeffrey Epstein files. Like, what the hell? Like, what? It just blew, like, all the people that used to be your heroes, and you're like, oh shit. Honestly, it's really disappointing, quite shocking. So
we only
I've removed them from my list now.
Apparently, only 2% of those files have really been disclosed. So there's still a lot more to come out.
But regardless, I think someone that is alive, definitely the man that I mentioned, Brian Stevenson. I think I'd love to meet him one day, and that just sums it up for me.
Okay, man. Thank you very much, man.
We
done, man.
Thank you. Hey.
Thank you for listening to Growth Through Failure, where we overcome failure one story at a time. Enjoy the episode, then like, subscribe, and share with your circle. Remember, failure is a stepping stone to success. So stay resilient, stay curious, and embrace the power of failure.